Well, Danny,
Yeah.
standing on an iconic bridge here in Chongqing, city of
Yes.
35 million and growing.
Yep.
And behind us here is the traffic flow. What's something we noticed about the cars here?
Well, the cars here, over half of them or more now. You can see the green license plates on the cars driving by. That all means that they're new energy vehicles.
Yeah.
They're renewable energy driven. And as you know, Alex, China has dozens, hundreds of brands. It's incredible amount of innovation happening there, which the United States has actually tariffed itself out of the new energy vehicle market, especially vis-a-vis China, because despite all the rollbacks of the tariff war, trade war from the Trump administration, there's still 100% tariffs on new energy vehicles coming out of China and for the United States.
So, I mean, we're up top here on the bridge here. Soon the sun will break. I can see the blue in there. But yeah, this is a city known as, well, in the summer, it gets very hot. So they call it the furnace. Okay. Famous city for hot pot, of course.
Yep.
And then it's nicknamed Foggy City. You name it. But in the summer, when we're probably another, well, of course, in America, it's in June. But once this thing goes bang, the clouds evaporate for a good 5 months and it is hot, very hot. Now, you're from a big city in America.
Yeah.
What's your feeling of being in this city? Do you feel unsafe or?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I've been to China now 5 times now in the last 5 years, 6 years, and each and every time I've always felt very comfortable. I know for a fact that many people have traveled here who live here. I know you've done videos with people who, just leave their stuff wherever they are and can walk around for 30 minutes and it's right exactly where they left it. No, China is no doubt probably the place I've been to that feels the safest just for someone coming from out of the country, wanting to explore. Never have had any issues at all. It's astounding because I think one of the things that people don't recognize about China is that while of course people are still striving for a better life and it's not some kind of a utopian 100% everyone lives an equal life here. Of course, some people live better than others, but I think that the fact that Chinese people, their lives are getting better and better, and there's so much more confidence around that, and there's so much to look forward to. It really does foster a kind of environment that you just recognize is something that you don't experience in the West, where people are experiencing more hopelessness. They are experiencing more deprivation. Their economic situations are actually getting worse and worse. And that means, yeah, you're going to have an increase in things like crime and petty theft and whatnot. But in China, it's the opposite direction. So it's a very safe place to be. And that just makes the experience of traveling even better because it makes everything that you do just that much more enjoyable and that much more of an experience that you just really don't forget. That's why I always recommend people to come here, because it's definitely not the dangerous and
it's
mysterious place that you
interesting you're saying
find
that,
in the
the
media.
dangerous, we hear this stereotype. Okay, look at this example here. We see security cameras here.
Yep.
Okay. Now, are these security cameras to try to invade our privacy, or are they here to help us be safe? Or, is there a reason behind this? And if you ask people in the West, they'll say, oh, China is surveilling me. Well, we're here on one of the busiest bridges in, I would say, China. I mean, in one of China's biggest cities, city of 30-some million, on the walking path, conducting a video with our awesome camera guy. And no one's giving us a hard time.
No.
So,
Nope.
I mean, it's impressive. Other things that let's talk about, let's continue to talk about some stereotypes. You're in America, so you feel it. What are people still hung up on about China?
Well, I think the biggest thing that people are hung up on is just a lack of understanding about China in general. So what they end up leaning on are fears that are pushed on them by the Western mainstream media. The biggest fear, I think, is that China is kind of a human rights disaster. That maybe you come here and you're just going to be curated around, and perhaps if you do something wrong, you will be on the receiving end of that human rights disaster that we're told over and over again is what's going on here, especially around things like ethnic groups, nationalities
Right.
here that we're told, like the Uyghur population in Xinjiang, we're told they're
And you went
repressed.
there, right?
I've been there twice.
What was the experience?
Well, there certainly is no genocide there. There are no concentration camps. People say, "Oh, well, you were paraded around by the government." The thing about it is that even just that image of China as this kind of prison camp as a society, it negates the fact that people are living their ordinary lives, and this is a region of the country that is one of the fastest growing because the government is so invested, because the people are so invested in improving the situation there. So when you go, yeah, you're not, of course there's a criminal justice system. Of course there are quote unquote people in prison. That's, every society has a criminal justice system. Every society has
Well, yeah.
a prison system. But when you look at it per capita, what's going on in China as a whole pales in comparison to the United States, because
Yeah, it's funny.
what we notice about the United States is that a lot of what the U.S. says about China is actually happening in the United States.
Right.
And the narratives that are pushed actually are a lot of fears that are legitimate if you're in the United States, whether
Right.
it's, oh, are you worried about human rights or surveillance? Well, these are things that people in the United States are legitimately concerned about for themselves, because their government is doing this not for their safety, but they're doing it because there's this, as we've talked about in the past, a decaying system of a tiny number of people who want to keep everything for themselves and are not interested in development and improving the lives of the people. And, you know, in the focus on geopolitics and coming to a place like China, you recognize that that's not all there is. And I think that's the biggest fear. That's why we get all these narratives
Yeah,
that China is this disaster. Well, it's because they don't want people to see in the United
This.
States that, yeah, that there can be progress.
Let me add to your, when we're talking about the prison system, I did a deep dive in depth on my channel. And for all things geopolitics, whether it's worldwide, Middle East, Asia, Danny Haifong is your man as well. For in-depth stuff here, locally here in China, and investigative reporting stuff, I did a deep dive into the American prison system, and I was quite shocked. What I was shocked about was how many people are incarcerated, staggering in that amount of people. How many people have either been arrested or had a criminal record? 1 in 3. And the other staggering thing is a lot of these prisons are for profit.
Yep.
2 of the largest correctional institutions in the United States are publicly traded companies on the New York Stock Exchange, who then in part fund lobbying to get sentencing extended
Yep.
or longer, helping their quarterly reports.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah, the United States has about double the prison population of China, despite having about 1/5 of the population, maybe even less than that. Of course, there's huge racial and ethnic cleavages inside of the prison system that probably many people are familiar with just by even following mainstream media at this point. It is well known. And despite the slight reduction in the prison system over the past 5 to 10 years, it is still the prison capital of the world. I think only El Salvador now per capita is ahead, and that's only because the United States has actually pushed El Salvador to increase its prison population, which I believe is like 5% of the total population now. But
Crazy.
the United States' prison system is also known for just being incredibly cruel, and it has a lot to do with foreign policy, because this is the kind of society, this is the kind of model that the U.S. has projected around the world. This is why China infuriates the United States so much, and even other countries in this multipolar world, is because China, and this is the interesting thing, oftentimes you ask about what people are so hung up on in the United States. Well, they're told that China is a security state. You mentioned the cameras, but like, oh, the police, the prisons, you're going to, if you get into trouble, if you jaywalk, you're going to go on a social credit system and you're going to be penalized. You do that enough and you'll get into real trouble. But the problem is that China It's all about innovation. It's all about development. It's all about increasing the standard of living of people. China actually has to maintain a system that isn't repressive. It needs people to be able to flourish and to be able to develop the society so that China can prosper and get richer and richer and to be able to take care of its own problems. So a big, massive, gigantic prison or police state would be anathema to that. In the United States, though, we have the opposite problem. We have an economy that's stagnating. We have, grows 1 to 2% per year. It's subject to these recessions. Poverty is growing. Inflation is rising. Homelessness, all of this stuff. But a prison and a police state is actually very useful for that. Because if you're going to not solve those problems, then you need to be able to control those problems. And a prison system, a big one, a police state, that's what that can achieve. It can control it. It can maintain it. It can ensure that, well, if people want to change it, then maybe they'll think twice because they'll be scared. And so, Americans will often live in fear of their own government. And then they watch as their government tries to impose that same kind of fear on the rest of the world, which is why the U.S.'s biggest allies, just look at them. We just saw Trump in the Gulf. These are some of the most repressive societies in the world. UAE, Qatar,
And the new leader
Saudi,
of Syria, who was on the
Al-Jolani,
who was on the top 10 CIA most wanted list.
Yes.
Apparently,
Jolani.
he changed his name and all went away.
Yes, Mr. Jolani and Al-Qaeda, he's literally a leader of Al-Qaeda. So
Crazy.
in Israel, of course, we know Israel, what it's doing, and it's Palestine, the rest of the region. So look at who the United States' friends are. Well, it's a direct reflection of the kind of society that it is building at home. So there's a big connection here.
Right.
And I think that's why China's development internally, what it is doing, is such a big problem for the mainstream media, for as our friend Brian Burleck, the special interests, these forces that don't want to solve these problems. They want to control them because they want to keep reaping the benefits for themselves over those of the rest of society, while China is really wondering, well, how do we improve the situation in society so that the benefits, whether it's business or ordinary people, are reaped